ammunition, F-16s, this, that and the other. On one hand, and Krishna alone, unarmed, on the other, and without batting an eyelid. Arjuna said, there he showed sattvic intellect. He said, Krishna, I'll take you even if it means alone, any day. And so he had the opportunity of borrowing Krishna's intellect. And if you follow the events of the Mahabharata, it is Krishna's advice at crucial moments that helped the Pandavas win the war. Otherwise, they would have been devastated. So this is it. Now, if you happen to, all of us get into situations where we are not sure, where we are making wrong judgments. There, you must have, again we're coming back to Harsha Bhogle, who says, you must assess yourself honestly and selflessly. So, you have to have the power to assess yourself and understand that this is where you have a tamasic intellect. You're not sure of what is right and wrong. Go to a person who has clarity of thinking, like Arjuna did. Surrender to the person. There's no shame in going to a person who has greater clarity and saying, please help me. This is what you're doing all the time. When you don't have money, you go to the bank and take a loan. You pay using your credit card. You're borrowing all the time. What? Money. But how about borrowing intellect? So when you are in tamasic intellect, you have no choice but to borrow intellect. Then comes sattvic consistency, is where you are firm in restraining. You see, you have in sattva, there is only one goal that you are pursuing, and that is the goal of self-realization or spiritual development. And in achieving that goal, you understand you need to restrain the body, mind and intellect from wandering into the bylanes of worldly attractions, for conserving your energy and redirecting it towards realization. So this is the consistency with which you function in the world. Rajasic consistency is where you consistently chase objects of desire. All your life you're doing nothing but acquiring and enjoying. At least you're trying to acquire and enjoy. And you're attached, you're craving, you're attached to what you have, you're craving for what you don't have. And what is interesting is, he says, Rajasic consistency is the consistency with which you hang on to duty in an egoistic sense. So when you're attached to people, your family members, your children, your spouse, etc., when it comes to doing things for them, you think you are doing your duty. Actually, you're doing it out of attachment and a lot of desire. So there is mental agitation. Tamasic consistency is where, out of delusion, you don't give up sleep, fear, grief, despair and arrogance. One of the things is, in the Gita, Arjuna in the first chapter and the first few verses of the second chapter is very despairful. He's full of grief because he knows there's going to be a lot of death that's going to take place. And Krishna, when Arjuna totally surrenders to Krishna, the first thing he says is, Arjuna, you speak words of wisdom, but you're grieving. You're grieving for people you should not grieve for. There is no place for grief in the world. And you know, when someone says this, and when you're sitting and grieving and crying, it suddenly gives you a jolt. He says, what are you grieving for? The wise grieve neither for the living nor for the dead. And Arjuna really gets a jolt. There are people, you see, just as when there is a cut on your skin, suppose you get hurt, instantly, that very moment, there are forces which get together to heal the part that is injured. And you do get freedom from it. Within a matter of hours, you can actually see the healing process has started. You cut yourself with a knife while cutting vegetables, and you see this process taking place. Same thing happens at the mental level. When you are hit by some grief, some sorrow, instantly there is the process of healing that comes into place. But you fight it out of tamas. Tamasic consistency is where you refuse to let go of grief. There are people, 20 years after the incident has taken place, shamelessly they say, I feel the loss as if it happened just this moment. This happens because out of your foolishness, you are not willing to let go of grief. Tamasic consistency. Then comes sattvic happiness. Sattvic happiness comes from knowledge of the self, spiritual evolution, which in the beginning is like poison. I'm sure on the first day when you came, you found it boring. First day, I don't mean necessarily here. Your first contact with spirituality is too high-flown, boring. You'd much rather go home and watch a movie on TV. But with time, as you invest your energies and efforts in it, you find what is poisonous in the beginning turns out to be nectarine in the end. Gives you a lot of happiness. Why is it poisonous in the beginning? Because spiritual development requires physical restraint, requires you to practice mental detachment and intellectual study of spiritual knowledge, which helps you to gain the right perspective in life, all of which is not very pleasant in the beginning. But in life, real happiness always is unpleasant in the beginning. If you want to maintain your health, going for a walk every day is painful. If you want to develop spiritually, waking up at Brahma Muhurta time is even more painful. If you want to eat the right kind of food, it's boring food in the beginning. Right? Anything that is good for you is somehow not that exciting in the beginning. But later on, it leads to everlasting happiness. Rajasic happiness comes from contact with sense objects, which is very pleasant in the beginning. If I were to offer you pav bhaji right now, I don't have any such thing, I'll just give an example. It's very tasty, or bhel, or sev puri, or any such thing. But later it causes problems. That is Rajasic happiness. Not only that, it leads to, if you're dependent on your happiness for contact with sense objects, the first time you contact a sense object, it gives you enormous happiness. Like for instance, the mango season has just started. Suppose you haven't had a mango yet this season, and for the first time you buy a mango and eat it, what bliss it is. Very sweet. Because you've eaten it after almost a full year. And then the main season comes, and then you have mango every meal. Breakfast, lunch and dinner if you're eating a mango. By the end of the mango season, somebody offers you mango, says, please don't even mention it. You get sick of it. And that's what Rajasic happiness is. Tamasic happiness, on the other hand, is the happiness that you get from sleep, indolence, carelessness. Those people who have no higher vision in life, the only happiness they get is out of oblivion, sleep. Then comes renunciation. Sattvic renunciation, just watch this language. Renunciation is to give up. Sattvic renunciation is the performance of obligatory duty, giving up attachment and craving. So what you need to give up is not action. What you need to give up is that which interferes with right action. And how do you get to that stage where you give up attachment and craving is the question. You cannot do it by just telling yourself, I'll give up attachment and craving. You can do that only when you pick up a higher desire. And if you move to the highest desire, which is the state of self-realization, then you gain fulfillment in the very action itself. You're not looking for any fruit. You're not even looking for getting to the state of self-realization. In the 9th chapter of the Gita, verses 27 and 28, he says exactly this. This is how you get to sattvic renunciation.
Yat karoshi yadashnasi yad juhoshi dadasi yat yat tapasyasi kaunteya tat kurushva madarpanam shubha shubha phalairevam mokshase karma bandhanaihi Sannyasa yoga yuktatma vimukto mamupaishyasi.
So what he's saying is, yat karoshi, whatever you do in life, yadashnasi, whatever you eat, whatever you offer in sacrifice, whatever you give as a gift, whatever you effort you put in, tapas you put in, O Kaunteya, tat kurushva madarpanam. Do that as an offering to me. And then you get complete, total satisfaction in the performance of the action. You're not looking for any result. Such a person is independent of the world. It doesn't matter to him whether his action is appreciated or depreciated, whether he gets a Nobel Prize for it or he is derided and put down by society. Because all that he's looking for is offering whatever he has, all his resources, to the Lord. And then what will happen? If you do this, Shubha Shubha Phalairevam Mokshase Karma Bandhanehi. Then you will get liberated from the good and evil effects of your action. Every action that you perform, the result of that is not dependent on your action alone. It is dependent on so many other people over whom you have no control. So it's absurd to depend on the fruit of the action. As long as you are waiting for the fruit, suppose I were to ask, oh, did you like the lecture? What do you think of it? I'll be in a stressful condition. Instead, if I were to do this as an offering to the Lord, then it will be successful. Successful or unsuccessful, I will get fulfillment from the performance of the action. I will take that one step towards the state of self-realization, and the objective is achieved. It's independent of anyone else in the world. So this is sattvic renunciation. Rajasic renunciation is where you give up something because it is painful for you to perform. All of us would like to earn a lot of money, but some people say, oh, I don't want money. Why? Because the working hard to make the money is a painful exercise, so you say, I don't want it. If the pain were removed from the whole operation, then you say, of course, you come back and say, I want it. Tamasic renunciation is renunciation of obligatory duties out of delusion. And this is what all of us are doing. I don't know how many of you are aware of what the obligations we are. The very fact that you have come into existence automatically imposes certain obligations on you. Are you aware of them? Are you fulfilling them? Are you even making an attempt to meet with all these obligations? If you're not, even if you're unaware of it and you're heedless of your obligations, then we are in a state of tamasic renunciation, where you renounce the action itself out of delusion. So this gives some idea of what, if you go home and make a chart, and against each give the definition and give yourself marks. Suppose you're taking a look at renunciation and you say, oh, I am 30% sattvic renunciation, 80% rajasic renunciation, and maybe 20% tamasic renunciation. Like this, give yourself marks. and put it away. And then get on to the spiritual path. 1 year later, take a re-exam, right, of your personality and see where you have improved, where you have not improved, where you've perhaps gone down a bit. And that gives you an idea, and you can continue on the path, right? For now, we move on to verse 17.
Sattvat sanjayate jnanam rajaso lobha eva cha pramadamohau tamasaha bhavato jnanameva cha.
From sattva, wisdom is born. From rajas, greed. Tamas gives rise to heedlessness, delusion, and ignorance. So, sattvat sanjayate jnanam, the knowledge of the self. What kind of knowledge? Not knowledge of physics and information technology and all the rest of it. Knowledge of the self emerges. Clarity of thinking gives both productivity, efficiency, as well as peace and happiness. The difference is, in tamas, you gain happiness out of ignorance. In rajas, you have partial knowledge, and this partial knowledge gives rise to agitation of the mind. Whereas in sattva, there is complete knowledge, there is a complete understanding, assessment, and no unreasonable expectations from any situation whatsoever. For instance, let's say in Shakespeare's play Julius Caesar, when Caesar gets assassinated, Mark Antony knows exactly what is happening. He knows that Brutus is the mastermind behind it. And he works out a strategy of getting even with Brutus, because he says, now Julius is dead, and Caesar was very dear to Mark Antony. And he grieves so much for his loss. What a noble person he was, Julius Caesar. But then he doesn't rush into it, doesn't get excited. He knows exactly who the culprit is, the mastermind. And he goes about it in such an objective manner, right through till the end. Every move that he's made is well thought of, analyzed well. He's made an assessment of Brutus's personality, and he makes the right moves in such a way that right at the end he manages to turn the whole crowd against Brutus and for Caesar. This is clarity of thought and total objectivity. And by the same token, he's not interested in the outcome, he is just interested in doing his bit. And so also all of us, if only we were to have the right assessment of the world, people around us, we wouldn't get upset and agitated. The problem with us is you expect the moon from people who have no capacity or inclination to come up with performance that you are expecting, and then you get upset. So, sattvat sanjayate jnanam. That in the world people are steeped in either ignorance, tamas, or sorrow, rajas. Where is the peace? You see only pieces everywhere. So, from rajas comes greed, infinite greed, insatiable greed. The more, they describe it as fire. And you actually experience this fire within. And that fire can go only when you gain knowledge of the self, or spiritual knowledge. That gets appeased. Otherwise, you're on tenterhooks all your life. And then slowly it starts impacting on your health. The system by system, one by one, everything shuts down. So from rajas comes greed, and from tamas leads to three things: pramada, heedlessness, the way we conduct ourselves with no thinking of what the consequences of our actions are, even in speech, the words that we use, the emotions that we give out to people, the body language, everything is, people are not unintelligent, they pick it up. So when you act in a certain way, you must be prepared for the consequences. You're not prepared for the consequences and you think everyone will not see, but they see it. Physical body, you abuse your body, heedless of damage or loss. I don't know whether it's ever occurred to you, we're born in the pink of health, most of us anyway. And in our lifetime, we live a life in such a way that you cut your own life short by a good 5-10 years because of heedlessness, pramada. Then moha, delusion. Even the most intelligent person in the world is completely deluded about so many things. Like we saw yesterday, where have I come from? What is my mission in life? What do I need to do? And how do I need to improve myself? And when I die, where am I going? Nothing is known to us and you believe that, oh, I'm a PhD, I'm doctor, this, that and the other. No use. Ajnanam, ignorance. There are millions of things pertaining to your own life that you don't know. And we're not even talking about Atman here. Even in the relative, there are people who say, I did not know of the existence of the intellect till just now. And how old is he? 65 years old. Most of us don't know what sattva, rajas, tamas is, blissfully ignorant of it, we go through life. So whole life is in ignorance. As rajas and tamas get eradicated, knowledge automatically dawns on us. It's like this, as the earth rotates towards the sun, there's dawn. Well, long before the sun actually rises, there is enough light for you to even read a book, for you to go for a walk. You can manage. So even long before realization, you don't even have to get to realization. Long before that, you get enough light to see your way through life. But if you're in pitch darkness, you're constantly going to collide against something or the other, somebody or the other, and that's going to give pain and sorrow and friction. And that's what's happening. 18.
ऊर्ध्वं गच्छन्ति सत्त्वस्थाः मध्ये तिष्ठन्ति राजसाः जघन्यगुणवृत्तिस्थाः अधो गच्छन्ति तामसाः.
They go upwards who are established in sattva. The rajasic remain in the middle. Tamasic go downward in accordance with the lowest guna quality. So when he says upwards or downwards, what he's referring to is vasanas or desires. Our spiritual level is determined by the quantum of desires. Spiritual level is inversely proportional to the desires that we have, which means the more the number of desires, the lower is the spiritual level. Less number of desires, higher the spiritual level. So what he's saying here is, those people who are established in sattva go upwards, means they get rid of existing vasanas or desires and move upward, move towards the state of zero desires. The rajasic, what happens with rajasic people is, they put in effort, sometimes they go up, and then at other times they go down because they operate on selfishness and a little bit of unselfishness. As a result, they go upward, down, up and down. They move within a narrow band. In life, you see most people doing this, move within a narrow band. You know someone at the age of 14, 15, and you meet the same person at the age of 50, exactly the same. Not the slightest improvement. The personality doesn't move forward at all. And there are others whose starting point was much lower, and there's a meteoric rise in that person. Don't you see this? So the tamasic people, they're not putting in effort at all. If at all, they're putting in effort to go downhill. So they're merely indulging, heedless, they're inert, inactive, and these people keep going downhill. So the key word here is effort, hard work. unless you put in effort. If there is no effort to move up, you will by default go down. And you see this not only in this field of spirituality, you see this in every field of activity. A person who's slim and trim gets careless about exercise, gets careless about food, and suddenly you find a person putting on weight. How does that happen? No effort. Sports person, when they first say, let's say a person is just joining, there's a lot of enthusiasm, he runs 25 miles, he exercises, he goes to the gym, he does this, that and the other, and he's in the pink of health and he performs very well. Then what happens? You and I make him a celebrity. So he earns a lot of money in endorsements and everyone recognizes him, and then what happens? His off-field activities take over and on-field activities go down. So his fitness levels go down, his performance goes down, and then he's out of the team. This is what happens. Same thing with actors, academicians. You know, people who are professors or in the field of academics, you find they are constantly in touch with cutting edge technology, the modern research, where is it going, what is it, what new things have been discovered, etc. The moment they remain at a standstill, what happens? Then their knowledge levels become obsolete. Because what was the trend 5 years ago, today has been completely turned somersaulted. So academics also, you have to, medicine is even more important. Doctors have to keep studying to keep abreast of what is happening in terms of developments. And so also with all of us. Whichever field you're engaged in, there has to be an effort to improve. And we're not talking about sport or medicine or anything, we're talking about we as human beings, for which you must make an assessment. That's why we went through this personality chart. Get some idea of what your weaknesses are, get an idea of what your strengths are, and